Okay, hi everyone. So at this stage, it will be different for all of you, but what we need to do is make sure that both pieces are the same size. So what I'm doing, I'm just going to pause it so you can see, is rewind it a little bit. You can see this edge, which is the machined edge, which means the sections that I didn't cut, I pushed flat. I put them on both on the same side, so they're both both down in this situation, and they're both pushed so they're both level with each other, so they're both flat level with each other, which should mean that the side that I've cut might be slightly different in size, because if I didn't perfectly cut centrally or I didn't mark out centrally, then there can be a slight difference between the two. So it's important for this design that both pieces are exactly the same. So I'll need to file and sand down and plane down any sections that need to be done. Now, what I'm going to do first is, if I make sure this section's perfectly level here, then I put some masking tape around the two pieces, hopefully only meaning that one side or one section needs filing down. So you put one bit of tape on and wrap it around no more than twice, and then snap it off at the bottom and the top just to make sure it's firmly, securely held together. And snap it off, and then repeat on the other one. So again, the machined sides, I'll swap it around. So those two are the machined sides, push them with your finger flat on the machine side, and then tape that together. Now, what you can do at this stage, if you sawn at a wonky angle, is you can use a tri-square to just mark a straight line across here, just to give you something to file down to. But if you're happy that there's only a little bit you're taking off and it's fine, you can start to plane it down. So you can see here I've clamped it up into the vise on the section that I need to remove it down to level, and I'm using this tool here, which is called a surf form. It's actually a type of plane, and it's very much like a cheese grater, and it will just grate off the surface that you need to grate. Now you've got to be very careful with these, because on this face here, if you're not being gentle, it will flick off. The edges of the wood will flick off. And so quite often they'll say that you should file in pushing across in this direction, but kind of stop just before the edge, and then come at it from the other side. So then you push from this side and then to that side, and then stop just before this, so you don't flick off the edge. But if you are gentle with it, you're not being too rough, if you're very gentle, you can get away with it, but do be careful that you're not too heavy-handed with it. You don't damage the edge too much. If it does happen, it's not the end of the world. We can just file it or put some filler on it later and tidy it up. But obviously try your best to keep it as neat as you can. And you can see I hold this as a slight angle. Now, if you look at the actual the grater section underneath here, that's also at an angle. So I've got it at the same kind of angle to where the grater is. I tend to find it works quicker. So I put my palm on the top. I put like a thumb on the front, and then like basically grating slowly until it comes down to level. Just not being too rough. When I'm happy that I've got it fairly level, I'm then going to pick up this one. It's a really rough file. It's actually called a rasp file, and it again will bring down the wood fairly quickly to level. And you can see I've got this at an angle of about 45 degrees to the wood, and I go from this point to this point across the material. It's called cross filing. It's cross the material at 45 degrees, and it removes the wood the fastest. Removes it down the fastest. Again, don't be too heavy-handed. If you're being too rough with it, you'll end up damaging the edges. Just take your time, and again, same thing applies. Okay. Now at this stage, I've swapped hands. I've swapped the position, so it's at 90 degrees now to the piece of wood. One hand on the handle, one hand on the end of the piece of wood, and you just move back and forth. It's called draw filing. Okay, and this one just levels it out. I'm going to go on now to the flat file, and this one just just brings it down a little bit more, but just starts to smooth it out a little bit. This is just before you go onto the sandpaper. So the techniques are the same. I'm going to go across, file first, and then when I'm happy with that, and I think it's all level, I'm then going to turn it onto draw filing, which is just back and forth. Okay, now the next thing is I'm going to choose some sandpaper now. If it was really rough, I could use a really coarse sandpaper with quite big chunks of sand on it, and it would have a low number. If it's really rough sandpaper, it has a lower number on the back of it. And then I could work down it gradually. But generally speaking, just for this situation here, I don't need it to be brilliantly smooth because it's going to be hidden within the joint, and later on I can always sand it down a bit more if I want to make it neater. I'm just chosen a medium coarse sandpaper of around about 150, something like that would do the job. So I'm wrapping it around the flat file. I wouldn't wrap it around the really coarse one because it will dig through the sandpaper because it's really rough. So use the flat file, wrap it around, and then just pinch it with your fingers, then just use it like that to then help you speed up the process, and this just smooths it out. You just draw a file back and forth at this point to get it level. And then, yeah, I've got two bits of sandpaper here. So I've got a slightly rougher one, I think it was about 100, and then one here that's about 200. So you can see I've just gone through the different grades a little bit just to show that you can do, but it's nothing to really throw it upside down just to repeat a little bit on the other side. Although it shouldn't really need it too much because you've hopefully leveled this out with your fingers, but it's just to give it a slight finish on there just to make sure the other side's exactly the same. Okay, I'm just going to fast forward, so it's exactly the same process that you've just seen. And then wrap the sandpapers around and repeat the same process. Now, a sanding board also will help. So it's just a sandpaper on this one here. It's just sandpaper stuck down to a piece of wood. And if you want to get the edges and stuff, a sandpaper board can just help just to tidy up all the edges and make it a little bit neater. So you can see you can then put it flat or however you want, just to make sure there's no splinters and nothing's going to go into your fingers. Okay, and you just then repeat exactly the same process again for the other piece. Okay, making sure that they're both exactly the same. So just fast forward this through this a little bit just to show you. Okay. And hopefully at the end, just have a check of them, and hopefully you should find that they're both exactly the same, ready for then constructing the frame. Okay, thank you for watching.